Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Sustainable Scoop. I'm very excited to have a guest with me today that you may have heard on WERA. He is our very own Mr. Green and Sexy, Leonard Robinson. Enviro Bro is what I like to call him. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
I've been wanting to have a conversation with you about your background, and I really think it's important that people understand, even your radio listeners, where you came from and how you came to be so green and so sexy. So tell me a little bit about how you got started in the environmental movement in California.
Well, when I graduated high school, I figured I didn't have an NBA caliber outside jump shot, so I figured I better go to school and learn something. So my first job was working with the county of Los Angeles, and they used to use acid and cyanide to break down the sewage. And my job was to make sure the acid didn't go in the cyanide tank and the cyanide didn't go in the acid tank. So I asked my boss one day, I said, what happens if I get them mixed up? He says, you're going to kill everybody downwind. That's a lot of responsibility for an 18-year-old that loved to party. But it was part of a pollution control plant. That's what they called it back then. And I loved it. I said, wow, I'm actually, people are in production, but I'm at the other end of production, which is pollution control. So I started there, decided to go to school for it. Took 7 years, got my 4-year degree. And then I started working for various companies. I worked for LA County, then I worked for a private company. Then I started my own business, called it Faithful Waste Management, and I tell people how to recycle. Then I was an environmental manager at a steel mill. It was a steel mill in California, the most environmentally challenging state, and it was a steel mill. So I started working there. Then I get a call on the phone, and they said, this is the office of Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. He'd like you to work at his administration. So I said, I have nothing better to do. So I went up to Sacramento and I became Chief Deputy Director for the Department of Toxic Substances Control. I stayed there. Governor Schwarzenegger left. Governor Brown came in, so I figured, okay, I'm a political appointee, I'm gone. Well, when I came back from vacation, he had appointed me to director of the department. So I stayed there 6 months, and now I just, so that's it in a nutshell. There's a whole bunch of stuff in between, but I love what I do.
Well, the thing about California and why it's so exciting that you're bringing some of those ideas here to the DC metro area is that really is where all of the great environmental movements began. It's almost like there was less argument and more consensus, and for some reason, and you have to tell me why was California so willing to make the first steps in trying to protect and improve the environment?
Well, California figured a way that you had to protect the environment, but then made a business element to it. So to one crowd, the business crowd, they said, we're going to create jobs, and this is going to create jobs and create markets and everything. And one of the side things is going to protect the environment. Told the environmentalist, we're going to protect the environment, we're going to do great things, and one of the side things is going to create jobs. So it was just one of those things where California marketed it to the business and to the environmentalists.
Such a positive spin
Yes.
on both sides.
Yes.
It's a win-win, right?
It is, it is. Now, there was a lot of arguing and cussing and everything in between, but they agreed to agree or agreed to disagree. They came to common ground. It was businesses and the environmentalists agreed this is the best move. Businesses said we can leverage this. The environmentalists said this is protect the environment.
And then the government really provided the kickstart, right?
Yeah, they do.
And on I guess of all the things I knew about Arnold Schwarzenegger, I never really connected the environment. Maybe because he's a Republican, and
Right.
a lot of people think that Democrats are the party of the
Right.
environment. Tell me, how does it work in California with the
Well,
government?
California nationally, yeah, it seems like you think you can't be a environmentalist and be Republican, but a lot of the major environmental movements were done by Republicans. Richard Nixon started the United States Environmental Protection Agency.
He did.
Ronald Reagan signed the Clean Air Act. Jerry Ford signed the Clean Water Act. Arnold Schwarzenegger put together California's climate change policy. And the reason it worked is because there was a business element to it. It made sense to business. It wasn't just a tax thing. It made sense to business. It put people to work. Every governor wants to put people to work. So they made it work that way. It was just finding the common solution.
So I've been working on a project to try to eliminate single-use styrofoam for years. I've talked to government leaders. I've gone to different events. I've pulled people together in a room, but for some reason or another, the DC metro area doesn't seem to have that motivation or that spark. And then I sat down and spoke to you for 10 minutes, and you had like 3 or 4 other great ideas that nobody had thought of.
So if you hang around long enough, things stick to you. So, yeah, it is. I've seen a lot. And see, it's not enough to have a good idea. You have to have the advocacy. You've got to get the partnership. There's an expression I like to use called "everybody likes a better mousetrap except the mouse."
Right.
You got to figure out who that mouse is.
And I guess that would be the people who produce
Right.
polluting items like, plastic bags or water
Right.
bottles. And so you have to figure out how to get them on board and, be open to change.
Right. Well, it's people worried about losing their jobs. So you think, if I put this in, what is this going to eliminate? Will this eliminate jobs? So you come in, you had solutions. This is the challenge, but this is a solution that can be a win-win scenario. That's how you have to do it.
And now tell me a little bit about your radio show and what motivates you to do that show every week.
Oh, well, I actually had a show in Southern California, and it was called the Leonard Robinson Show. The reason why I called it that, because I didn't want to forget the name of it. When the engineer said, you're on. And then I went up to Sacramento, and I used to complain that none of the stations were talking about the environment in an interesting way.
So it looks like we're just about out of time, so you'll have to come back
Yes.
and see me again and remind everybody of your station and when you air.
Yes, every Wednesday, 7 o'clock p.m. on WERA 96.7 FM, the greenest station in the nation.
Green and sexy. Thanks so
Yes.
much for being with me today, Leonard.
All right.
It's Leonard Robinson, Green and Sexy, EnviroBro. I want to thank all of you for watching The Sustainable Scoop. We'll see you next time. Back to the news desk.